Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Jacob Collier. Just a reminder to stay cool and to check out the inner workings of the music that you listen to, because that is what makes you cool. And in time, hopefully, with that knowledge, you will be able to create brilliant things of your own, and we need you right now, so get on it. See you soon.
Hello, Ray Harmony and Kate Harmony here. Welcome to the Hack Music Theory Show. It's an extra special one today because it's our first show as a married couple.
Yep, this last weekend we officially became Mr. and Mrs. Harmony. But instead of going on a honeymoon this week, we came back to the studio to make Hack Music Theory videos for you. And it seems the universe rewarded us for our dedication, as last night the genius Jacob Collier came to town, and we would have missed him if we were on a honeymoon.
If you don't know who Jacob Collier is, let me sum him up in a nutshell. Every now and then, when the world is lucky beyond lucky, we get gifted with a human who somehow manages to work their compositional and performance skills to an equally genius level. My hero, J.S. Bach, Bach knuckle tattoo, is the obvious example of this type of extraordinary musician. But now in our time, we have J.S. Collier. We have Jacob Collier, who is a mere 22 years young and is already proven himself worthy of that comparison.
Jacob's show last night was truly mind-blowing and heart-blowing. It left us speechless. But we did manage to get our tongues back after the show to have an inspiring chat with this humble genius.
During our chat, Jacob mentioned that the incredible June Lee, who is a fellow music theory nerd, like us, had just uploaded a brand new music theory interview with him to YouTube. So naturally, we went straight home and watched the whole 38-minute video twice.
If you missed part one of this interview series, which June uploaded a couple of months ago, it ended up going viral with every musician and their cat being obsessed with this negative harmony thing that Jacob talked about. So, in Jacob's latest video, he talks more about negative harmony, and we're sure it's going to spark even more interest on the topic. Seeing as we've already had tons of people ask us to do a video on negative harmony, that's what we're going to do today.
In his new video, Jacob excellently explains this theory as both a harmonic concept and a melodic concept. And in the context of popular music these days, melody is seen as being far more important than harmony. This can be heard in many of today's big hits, where all the emphasis and attention is placed on the vocal melodies and then the bass melodies. And when there are chords, if there are chords, they're often mixed into the background, acting more as sonic filler. For this reason, I can see an awesome application for the negative melody concept in popular music in the way of vocal or bass lines, and that's what I'm going to share in this video. By the way, Jacob explains the melodic use of negative harmony in his new video at 4 minutes and 21 seconds, so check it out.
The link is below.
Because we're going to be zooming into that C negative major example he gives. Before we jump in though, here's two little but very important disclaimers for you. Firstly, the example I'll be teaching in this video is just one of a myriad of possibilities for using negative harmony, or negative melody rather. So please use this as inspiration for you to come up with your own ideas.
And secondly, negative harmony is just a theory, conceptualized by one person. So while many musicians are getting caught up in arguments about whether it exists or not, and if it does, how to correctly apply it, none of this is relevant.
Exactly. Negative harmony is just another creative hack that we can put in our songwriting toolboxes. I've been teaching music theory for over 2 decades, and throughout that time I've had countless musicians arguing with me that music theory hinders creativity. And unsurprisingly, not once has this argument ever come from someone who actually understands music theory, because those who learn music theory experience the exact opposite. Music theory ignites creativity. Music theory connects things that were previously disconnected. Music theory expands our musical vocabulary, allowing us to easily express things that we could never previously express.
Yeah, music theory!
Okay, I'll stop preaching and start teaching now. Alright, let's get to it. So, the concept of positive and negative is the concept of polarity, and that's exactly the same when applied to music. So the negative harmony theory goes that you can have a positive chord or chord progression or note or melody, and you can flip it over an axis of your choosing and create a negative version of that same musical content. So it's kind of like a shadow of the original version. And as part of the switching of polarity, the idea is that you take content in major, flip it over an axis and it becomes minor, and vice versa, you take minor, flip it becomes major. And because the major family of scales and chords are bright and uplifting, and the minor family of scales and chords are dark and serious, this really brings the interplay of light and dark polarity into music. Okay, so here's the game plan. We're going to write a melody for the bass using C major, then we're going to flip it over an axis and create a negative version of that same bass line. This hack can be so useful in so many different situations in your songwriting and producing, but I'll just give you two quick examples. Example one, let's say we've just written this killer bass line in C major, and it's now going to be the verse in our new song. So we loop it up, we listen back, and it's like, oh, it's a bit too repetitive. We need some variation. So let's loop up 3 of the C major bass lines, and then every fourth time we can switch to the negative version of that same bass line. This will keep the flow going, it'll keep the groove going, but the pitches are different and the emotion is different. So every fourth time the music is refreshed and therefore the listeners are refreshed. This hack of using negative harmony or negative melody as a tool for creating variation is incredibly useful in popular music songs, and I can totally imagine it even being used in the biggest hits. Example 2. Say we actually like the C major bassline looping for the whole of our first verse. Then we could use the negative version of that bassline for our second verse. So we create contrasting verses. Verse 1 is the melody, which is light, and verse 2 is the negative melody, which is dark. These two verses really are going to sound like opposite polarities of the same thing, because the rhythm is identical and the melodic contour is a shadow, which means it's instantly recognizable despite having different pitches and a different emotion. Right, without further ado, let's do it. So C major is what we get when we play all the white notes starting from C. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now, before we work out the negative version of the scale, it's vital to first understand its positive version. In other words, the scale in its original form. So, what makes a major scale a major scale? It's intervals. The intervals of a scale, of any scale, are its DNA code, and those intervals are what create the sound and emotion of that scale. And by the way, if you don't know what an interval is, it's just the distance between two notes, that's it. So the major scale's intervals are 2 semitones, 2 semitones, 1 semitone, 2 semitones, 2 semitones, 2 semitones, and 1 semitone. So 2-2-1, 2-2-2-1. Now to create C negative major, all we do is take C major, flip it over an axis, and follow that same semitone pattern, 2-2-1, 2-2-2-1, but going down this time. The axis that Jacob used in his C negative major example in that video was the 5th. So C, D, E, F, G. The 5th of C major is G. So all we do is start on G, which is going to act as the root for our negative scale. Then we follow the major scale semitone formula of 2-2-1, 2-2-2-1, but going down instead of up. So 2 semitones, 2 semitones, 1 semitone, 2 semitones, 2 semitones, 2 semitones, and 1 semitone. And that is our C negative major scale. And for those of you who are familiar with the modes, you've probably already noticed that this is actually G Phrygian. And for those of you who don't know the modes, Phrygian is the really dark sounding minor mode, which totally explains why when we take C major and flip it over that axis, we create this dissonant shadow, which is going to be amazing for our negative melody. By the way, if you want a super simple hack for all the modes and their emotions, then please download my Hack Music Theory for Songwriting and Producing PDF. The link is below. And finally, we're down to the last stage of setting up before the magic happens. So all we need to do now is create a table with C major and C negative major, where every positive note has a corresponding negative note. And hey, what do you know? Here's one I made earlier. Alright, it's magic time! Let's make a bass line! Oh, it's been a long day. The way you want to start is by deleting the scales, because while it's vital to know what notes you can use, it's best to start with a blank canvas, because imagine all the possibilities. Endless possibilities. Infinite possibilities. Okay, so let's set the grid to 16ths so we can get a nice bit of energy going in here. We're in C major, so we're going to start on the C, which is the root or the 1, and actually that is a very high root for the bass, so let's pull it down an octave. Then we're going to immediately inject that major happy vibe into our bass line by going to the 3, and then we're going to go straight back to the 1 because that's really going to establish the C as the root. And then we go down a semitone to the 7 because semitones are cool, and then we go back up a semitone to the 1. So now we've definitely established that C is the root and C major is the key. Then let's go down to A, which is the 6. Then we're going to have a little rest over here because that's a cool place for a phrase. And then we go up to the 7, syncopation, starting on that off beat there, and then holding the note over the 3rd beat of the bar. And then we can fall down to the 5 and then down to the 3. Then we're going to shoot straight up to an octave of the 3 using that same motif, right? Motifs, short musical ideas, always hunting for them. So we're starting just the 16th before the quarter note beat here, which gives us that cool syncopation. We hold that over the beat again, and then we're going to climb up to the 4, so this is like our climax over here of the melody, and then we're going to drop all the way down to that low 3 before we have another breath in the melody, which then takes us round to the beginning and the 1 again, and we're done. So have a listen to this. So now that we've written our positive melody, it's time to flip that over the axis and discover what shadow is lurking beneath. So let's copy and paste this melody because we don't want to mess with that one because that's the original one. And here we go, we're in the copied one. Now we can create our negative melody. So let's start by selecting everything and muting everything. And now we just use the table we made earlier to replace every positive note that we've now muted with its corresponding negative note. So you can see here C is going to be replaced with a G. C, we're going to put a G in here, and then the E is going to be replaced by an E flat, and we're moving in the opposite direction, so we're creating really nice contrary motion here. And then C again we're going to replace with a G again, and then B in the positive melody is going to be replaced with A flat in the negative melody, which is there. And then back to the same note again, so back to the G, and then we're going to A in the positive melody, which is going to be replaced by B flat in the negative melody, and that is over there. Then we're going to take a breath as well, a rest for the phrase, and then the positive melody is going to B, which is going to be replaced by A flat, so down to there again. And then the positive melody is going to G, which we're going to replace with a C, so up there. And then the positive melody is moving down to an E, so we're going to move up to an E flat. And then the positive melody is moving way up to that octave of the E, so obviously we're going to do an octave as well of the E flat, which is going to be down here. Oops. And then the positive melody is moving up to an F, and we're going to replace that with a D, moving down obviously, so keeping that contrary motion, moving opposite. And then the positive melody moves down to an E, and we're going to move up to that E flat, and we're done. So check out the negative melody on its own. You can really hear that dark Phrygian vibe here, from the 1 to the flat 2 to the 1 to the flat 3 and then to that long flat 2 there. It's just super shadowy and amazing for our negative melody. Alright, super cool stuff. So now all we have to do is bust this out over 4 cycles. So this is the negative melody one here. Let's move this all the way to the end. So this is going to be our 4th cycle, because that was the whole point of using this concept of negative melody to create a variation on our main melody, which is up here, the C major melody. So let's loop that up for 3 times, and then the 4th time is going to be our variation using the negative melody. Okay, and here's some drums I made earlier. Let's just copy and paste those in. And then we can double it up on the synth just to get a thicker texture. And maybe that fourth one, let's just play that on the synth and not the bass guitar. So we kind of create a variation in the texture as well, which is going to sound super cool, rolling us back around to the beginning. So check this out. Lastly, thanks big time to our patrons over on Patreon for supporting Hack Music Theory. And if you want to join our Hack Music Theory revolution and get exclusive content too, then please visit patreon.com/revolutionharmony.